Um, I declare the meeting open and I'll begin by acknowledging the traditional owners of the land. Getting a bit of feedback from the laptop up. All good? Great. I'll begin by acknowledging the traditional owners of the land and paying my respects to their elders, both past and present. We have apologies tonight from councillors Shetty and Lockie, tabled. I'll move that those apologies be accepted, seconded by the Deputy Mayor. All those in favour? Against? Declare that carried. We've also got requests for remote attendance from councillors Stevens, Sardulius, Atkins and Langford. Councillor Howard will move that that be accepted, seconded by the Deputy Mayor. All those in favour? Against? Declare that carried. Can I just check that we're able to get those councillors participating remotely on the screen?
Yes.
Okay. Can I just for the benefit of the four councillors who are participating remotely, we can't see you on the screen. So I'm just going to do a little test here to make sure that you are able to participate in the meeting. Councillor Stevens, can you hear me?
I can hear you clearly, Mr. Mayor.
Excellent. Okay. And Councillor Atkins, can you hear me?
Yes, I can.
Great. Can I ask all four of you that if you wish to speak to an item, just to sing out and let me know and I'll put you on the list because we won't be able to see your hand go up. That makes sense? Okay, we'll move on to the notice of webcasting. Councillors will all be aware that the proceedings are broadcast live onto YouTube and recorded there for posterity, as is a requirement of the Local Government Act, and therefore the comments that you make tonight have legal ramifications and are in the public domain. I'll now read the statement of ethical obligations. The Mayor and councillors are bound by the oath or affirmation of office made at the start of the council term to undertake their civic duties in the best interest of the people of West Council and to faithfully and impartially carry out the functions, powers, authorities and discretions vested in them under the Local Government Act or any other act to the best of their skill and judgment. There's also a requirement that the Mayor and councillors disclose conflicts of interest in relation to items listed for consideration on the agenda or which are considered at this meeting in accordance with the Council's Code of Conduct. And we'll move on to disclosures of interest. Are there any disclosures tonight? There being no disclosures, I'll move on to I'll ask everyone to join me in a moment of quiet contemplation. Thank you for that. There being no public forum, no condolence motions and no mayoral minutes, we'll move on to the first of the two items on the agenda tonight. That is item 1, FOGO Food Recycling Update, February 2024. Councillor Howard.
Thank you. I would. I just wanted to speak briefly, but just to again thank our staff for their ongoing work in the rollout of FOGO food recycling. As we've known, it's been a monumental one that is positively transforming the way we manage waste. Together, we've diverted over 6,000 tonnes of food and organics waste from landfill, the equivalent of 12,820 tonnes of CO2, or 7,994 cars off the road. As the report shows, 1,527 tonnes was December and 1,800 tonnes January compared to an average of 1,200 tonnes per week. Our friends in Randwick Council, and we have extremely low rates of contamination. That's a spectacular effort from Inner West residents and one that's far above the tonnage we put before we started. Yes, and something we can be proud of. I will hold any motion, but just again wanted to thank the staff for their in regards to the report and committee.
Thank you for that. Is there a seconder for the motion? Seconded by Councillor De Cruz. Do you wish to speak to it?
Yes, I have 3 questions I'd like to put to the relevant officers.
Please proceed.
Is there a report on the waste buses audit and education findings?
I'll put that question to the officers.
Through the chair, can you hear me? Yep. Okay, but we're going to include some information in the March council meeting on waste busters, what they've been doing during their time with us. And also we'll be doing a review of the service and audits and things later in the year.
Thank you for that. Councillor De Cruz.
Okay, the second question is, what are the emissions generated from additional collections of red bins so far?
Put that question to the officers.
Through the chair, the additional collections at the moment are being done by only one vehicle per day for all of the days of the week. I don't know the greenhouse gas emissions of that one vehicle, but can certainly take that on notice and put it in the March report.
Mileage will be enough. Okay, and the third question is, what change have we seen in landfill levies or charges? I mean, what we pay in landfill since rolling out FOGO?
I'll put that question to the officers.
Can we take that one, through the chair, can we take that one on notice, please? Because we've just got to do some calculations between FOGO tonnages and garbage tonnages. And obviously we don't want to share any confidential contract information in a public forum, so we can send that to you separately.
No problem. Thank you for that. Is there any further questions or discussion? Councillor Stamlos.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I noted that we've made some comparisons with other councils, apparently. On the waste per capita basis, how are we sitting with some of the other councils that have introduced this scheme?
I'll put that question to the officers.
Through the chair. At the moment, we've got to do that full analysis on how many tonnes of both garbage and FOGO we have collected. We can certainly include an indication of that per capita in the March report.
Thank you for that. There being no further questions, I'll go to Councillor Howard for a right of reply. That's waived.
Mayor, can I just double check that we have the other councillors participating?
We do. We can't see them on the screen, so when we conduct the vote, I'm going to have to ask them to verbally indicate their vote, which I'll now do. So I'll put the Howard De Cruz motion to receive and note the report. All those in the chamber in favour, please raise your hands. That's everybody in the chamber, and I'll just go through each of the 4 councillors online. Councillor Atkins.
I'm for the motion.
Thank you. Councillor Langford.
Support.
Thank you. Councillor Stevens.
In favour.
Councillor Sardulius.
Support.
That is unanimous. We'll move on to the second and last item on the agenda, which is more support for food recycling in the Inner West. Food recycling in the Inner West is proving to be a big success, with large-scale uptake across the community leading to very high tonnages of organic waste being recycled and the carbon emissions of the Inner West community being massively reduced. Since the start of the new service in October, we've diverted 5,900 tonnes of organic waste to compost instead of rotting in landfill. That number, of course, will be larger now. This was written a few weeks ago. The methane and carbon emissions saved from this is the equivalent of having taken more than 7,000 cars off the road for 1 year. This represents the single biggest contribution the Inner West community has ever made to reducing emissions and combating climate change. Together, Inner West citizens have made this effort to change the way we deal with waste, and the vast majority of households have adapted to the new system. Many local people are reporting that they're proud to be making a difference for our environment through food recycling. Assistance for residents has included offering a free larger 240-litre red bin, which 3,600 households, approximately, have taken up, as well as a free additional red bin collection which residents can book online. We committed in October to assessing the support being provided to households at the commencement of the scheme after the initial rollout and to taking a pragmatic approach to ensure the ongoing success of food recycling in the Inner West. While most households have successfully made the transition to food recycling, the rollout has demonstrated that some residents are still finding the change challenging. In particular, families with small children who need to dispose of nappies and larger households with larger volumes of waste have reported difficulty with adjusting to the fortnightly red bin collection. To ensure the ongoing success of food recycling and that all residents are receiving the service and support they need, Council should now provide further support in the form of an opt-in weekly red bin collection for households that need it. Council officers estimate that if 15% of households take this up, the opt-in service, the cost would be approximately $1 million per annum. And so I'm recommending the motion before us, and I will move that way. Councillor Howard?
Thank you. Just briefly, I spoke earlier about the success of the program. And again, I think it's a wonderful testament to the work that our staff have done and to the community as a whole. Big behavioural change like this takes time, and it does take leadership as well. And part of that leadership is, being flexible and being pragmatic and helping people who need that extra help. I'm really proud that since we've implemented FOGO, we have offered a range of different ways that people can obtain assistance. Those people who are really struggling to make that change. So, we've offered the free upsize to the 240 litre red bin, the extra red lid bin collections, providing free compostable bags. I'm sure every councillor has had positive feedback about that, just the way that we've flexibly responded and said, hey, there's another way that we can do this. And our staff did an extraordinary job to get that out before Christmas, to get a roll of compostable bags to every freestanding home. Just a huge effort. And of course, we've reinstated the rebate on reusable nappies and sanitary items, and offering the used nappy and sanitary item drop-off. So in that vein, this is again another means by which we can assist those people who are really struggling. It follows the approach that's broadly used in Penrith Council. It's really a great way for us to give just that extra bit of time and help to people who really need that extra push to help to get to FOGO. And one thing I wanted to kind of make a point about today is, whilst we might be offering this opt-in service for a weekly red bin, when we're still going to be providing FOGO services to every house, it's not an opt-out of FOGO. That gives us that opportunity to really embed those conversations, have those meaningful conversations, and continue to make that positive change. I think this is just yet another way we're helping people and really embedding FOGO for the long term.
Thanks very much, Councillor Howard. Is there any discussion? Councillor De Cruz?
Thank you. I've got three questions. How many through you to the relevant officer?
Yep.
How many dwellings which have requested additional collections are registered for waste busters?
I'll put that question to the officers.
Sorry, through the chair. How many of the households that have had the
How many dwellings which have requested additional collections have also requested waste busters or registered or whatever you have to do to get waste busters to appeal?
we
do the
haven't
thing.
cross-analysed the data as yet. So waste busters are primarily focusing on where people are presenting their bin in the off week, the wrong week, or their bin is, the FOGO bin is contaminated, like they put the wrong item in. So their focus has been to actually contact them and talk to them and kind of correct that behaviour. And we're going to be starting to do a bin tagging program shortly, where we'd be going in streets, particularly where we've had a problem with incorrect presentation and contamination, and then auditing those bins, just doing a quick visual audit, inspecting and giving people feedback. So if people have done a great job, they get a tag that says that they've done a great job. But if there's a slight issue in that bin, we'd then notify them personally in that letterbox. So we haven't actually cross-referenced the data between who we've contacted, because it's been in response to issues rather than.
Thank you for that.
Okay, through you, Chair. So I'll rephrase my second question is like, so people who've requested an additional red bin are not automatically selected for Wastebusters audits and reviews and education?
I'll put that question to the officers.
Through the chair. So we did send out emails to people who have had the 3,600 households with the upsized red lid bin, and information in that included, waste avoidance and better FOGO practices education, and offered the Wastebuster service. We've had, I think, 2 book-in through those emails, but generally those households that have upsized their red bins so far have been struggling and not been at the point where we've been able to kind of directly engage with them in education.
And the third question, what have the audit and education, Wastebusters audit and education have found that is the need for the extra collection? I guess you haven't done that analysis yet.
I'll put that question to the officers.
Through the chair, we haven't analysed that as yet. That would be part of the review.
Thank you for that. I've got Councillor Atkins.
Yes, you do. I have some questions, and I also have an amendment, some amendments to propose.
Okay.
First of all, through the chair, I'd like to understand how the proposal will work logistically. For example, are waste workers expected to know which dwellings have opted in? Will they check the street numbers on bins that are out and only collect those bins on the list? How will this work?
I'll put that question to the officers.
Through the chair, that will be part of our implementation plan. So there's a number of options that we're looking at. One is Optimo, which will be a routing kind of process. In the early stages of implementation, the crews will be looking at house numbers, but we will look at whether stickers on bins will be required to say that you're an opt-in weekly service.
Thank you for that. Councillor Atkins.
As a follow-on to that, through the chair, does that mean once we get to the point of maybe stickers on bins, if people put their bins out anyway, will they not be collected?
I'll put that question to the officers.
That will be, through the chair, that would be part of the implementation plan. We'd have to look at street by street. So if residents are following it like a binfluencer, if you like, if there's multi-unit dwellings in the street as well as lots of people with opt-in, then we would assume that we would take everybody's bin at that point and educate those people that have been putting them out that aren't on the opt-in weekly.
Thank you for that. Councillor Atkins.
Yep, one final question. Changing behaviour to ensure less waste goes to landfill is the purpose of FOGO. What are we going to do to encourage people either not to take up the opt-in weekly collection or to move off it as quickly as possible?
I'll put that question to the officers.
Through the chair. There will be education involved at various points along the way. Our aim is still to encourage people to reduce waste. But basically, we're going to be congratulating people for doing what they're doing already, but this service would be available for those that really need the additional collection, the weekly.
Thank you for that.
That will be in comms.
Thank you. Councillor Atkins.
Thank you. I do have some amendments which I provided earlier to the minute takers.
Do you wish to speak to those?
Just very quickly, you'll be able to have, you can tell from my questions that my concerns are around not undermining the purpose of FOGO. I do agree that residents need some help at this point, or particular residents with particular issues do, but I am concerned about undermining the purpose of introducing FOGO recycling. I'd like to, for that reason, I'd really like to see us only put this in place for a much shorter period. And therefore, I'm proposing to replace 2 years with 6 months, which would mean a report back in August 2024, and then in fact, the staff do not have the correct number 5 there as the additional point. I sent a second email to the minute taker. My number 5, those both read the same way. Number 5 should read that Wastebusters direct outreach and education to those households which have opted into the weekly red bin collection with a view to moving them back to fortnightly service as soon as possible. Darcy should and Bojane should have that in.
Okay, well, I'll wait for that wording to be on the screen. That's an additional. Okay, so that's
Instead of that, there we go. That's it. Yes, and then I would just like for to ensure that the 12-month implementation review that we resolved at our November 2023 meeting include an evaluation of this as including its level of uptake, cost, and issues encountered.
okay. I'm happy to incorporate point 6 into the primary motion and then treat points 1 and 2 as amendments, which I won't incorporate. So we'll deal with each of them. Sorry, just one moment. I'll ask the minute takers to go back down. Thank you. So we've got 2 amendments from Councillor Atkins, seconded by Councillor De Cruz. The first is to delete the words 2 years from paragraph 2B and replace with 6 months. So I won't incorporate that. I think Councillor Atkins has spoken to that. Councillor De Cruz, do you wish to speak to it?
I think it'd be worthwhile if us knowing why it's 2 years or 6 months or 9 months or whatever, how that figure was arrived, how your 2 years was arrived at, perhaps.
You're posing that as a question to me?
Yes.
I think 2 years is the length of period that we need to look at in terms of the support that we provide. This is a big structural reform, and the assessment after the first few months of the rollout, which we've committed to previously, indicates that there's some families or some households for whom it's just not one size fits all. So I derived the 2-year period because it was my assessment about the certainty that people needed in order to make the scheme a success. Hope that answers your question. Okay, so I'll put the Atkins De Cruz amendment, the first point, which is 1A and 1B. So I'll put that. All those in favour, please raise your hands. In support, I have Councillors De Cruz and Griffiths within the chamber, and I'll just go to each of the councillors. Councillor Atkins, are you in support?
Yes.
Councillor Langford?
Support.
Councillor Stevens?
Against.
Councillor Sardulius?
Against.
Okay. And then all those councillors in the chamber who are against the amendment, please raise your hands. And that is Councillors D'Arienzo, Scott, Howard, Deputy Mayor Smith, Councillor Drury and Councillor Stamoulis, and myself. So that has been defeated. And we've got one final amendment to vote on, which is also moved by Councillor Atkins and Councillor De Cruz, and that is that Wastebusters direct outreach and education to those households which have opted into the weekly red bin collection with a view to moving them back to fortnightly service as soon as possible. I'll put that. All those in favour, please raise your hands. In support, I have Councillors De Cruz, Griffiths and Stamoulis. I'll go online. Councillor Atkins.
Support.
Councillor Langford.
Support.
Councillor Sardulius.
Against.
Councillor Stevens.
Against.
And then within the chamber, all those against, please raise your hands. And that is Councillors Drury, the Deputy Mayor, Councillor Howard, Councillor Scott, Councillor D'Arienzo and myself. That has been defeated. So we'll now return to the primary motion, which has had an amendment incorporated. Councillor Griffiths.
Yeah, I just had a few questions.
Yep.
So the background to the motion says that council officers estimate if 15% of households take this new opt-in service up, but it would cost approximately $1 million per annum through you, Mayor. What if that was 30%? What if that was 50%? Is there any type of projected costs for that?
I'll note that that will be the subject of the report that we receive in 2 weeks' time, but I'll put that question to the officers.
Through you, Chair, we would need to do detailed analysis for a variety of circumstances and would endeavour to put that in the report as the Chair noted.
And just a follow-up question.
Yep.
So how? So currently we're getting FOGO updates every council meeting. How long is that projected? Are we going to be getting the FOGO updates, and will those updates include figures of how many people are opting into the service?
Put that question to the officers.
Through the chair, I believe it was 12 months from the date of implementation. You'll be getting the monthly reports. So that would be October 2024 and whatever you decide thereafter. Yes, we can include uptake of upsized red bins or weekly collections. We can include that data.
Thank you for that. Councillor Stamoulis.
Mr. Mayor, I think it's very fair to say that our residents are very enthusiastic about FOGO and some of the achievements that have been made to date. And I think it's also pertinent to recognise that this motion signifies that there's a strong level of concern out there, so much so that we've called an extraordinary meeting to address changes to the system. In terms of the service that we're going to provide, I think a lot of residents are very anxious to see this approved tonight and that it works well. It's not quite clear to me from the report that we know our numbers very well. On the basis of what I'm seeing tonight, if I exclude multi-unit dwellings and then ratio the 15%, we might be looking at about 4,000 to 5,000 households. Please correct me at any stage if that's incorrect. But 4,000 to 5,000 households, it's not going to be a static number. We know that because we have turnover in our population of 10 to 12% every year anyway. We know that we could start with 6 in a given street. That moves to 8, moves to 12, moves to 17 over a 3-month period, 8-month period, whatever. So it's going to be quite a fluid number. The word opt-out is not there, so I'm not sure whether once they put their hand up, whether they can never put it down again. So the word, so a flexible system. I can't see that flexibility there. That I might say, well, one of my children's left home now, so I'm quite happy to go back to the one bin. How do I do this? So a lot of those things to me, we need to make sure that when we implement this for our residents, we don't frustrate them even further. So let them know what to do, whether they can opt in, whether they can opt out. When they leave their premises to go on a work thing for 12 months overseas, they can opt out and then come back in again at a later stage. So let's build and provide all this flexibility in. Certainly let councillors.
Councillor Stamoulis, your time has expired. Okay, thank you for that. There being no further discussion, I'll make a brief right of reply.
I do have a question.
Oh, yep, Councillor Langford.
Thank you. Through you, Chair, to the relevant officers, I'm just wondering, how does Council plan to notify residents of the new permanent red bin service?
I'll put that question to the Council officers.
Through you, Chair. As mentioned before, we would need to develop an implementation plan and how we communicate with residents would be considered in that process.
Thank you for that. There being no further discussion, I'll make a brief right of reply.
Question to that one, please, Mayor.
Yep, Councillor Langford.
Through you, yes. So will residents have to nominate a reason why they're requesting the weekly service if they do so, rather than just, a blanket request? Will they be data collected about why they need to be doing this?
I put that question to the Council officers.
Through you, Chair. That would be developed in the implementation plan, but we would be looking at the data necessary to best serve the community through the service.
Thank you for that.
Thank you.
Okay, there being no further amendments, I'll make a brief right of reply. I'd like to encourage all councillors who have positive ideas about how to further strengthen food recycling to table those as amendments or as notices of motion. There's been a lot of criticism online and in the community from some councillors about the program, but there's actually been unanimity in the votes at council. And of course, I think all of us would recognise that supporting a program, voting for it, and then criticising it publicly when it's what you voted for is not a responsible way to approach such an important reform. I'll now put the motion. All those in favour, please raise your hands. That is everyone other than Councillor De Cruz in the chamber. And I'll just go to the councillors online. Councillor Stevens?
In favour.
Councillor Sardulius?
For.
Councillor Atkins?
In favour.
Councillor Langford?
Support.
And then I'll go to councillors in the chamber who are against. Please raise your hand. That is Councillor De Cruz. That has been carried with everyone other than Councillor De Cruz in support. That being all the business on the agenda, I declare the meeting closed. Thanks very much, everybody.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor.